Nightmare began. Charles woke up one morning with a strange pungent smell in the air. At first, he thought it was just his imagination. But no, the smell was real and it was coming from his head. He froze in shock as he ran his hand through his hair. Something was wrong. The faint smell of rotten eggs mixed with a foul, musty odor clung to his scalp. No, Mike, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like something is decaying. My scalp. It smells horrible. Your head, the smell, it's a curse. The place where you got your last haircut is responsible. Charles blinked, bewildered. What? A curse? That's crazy. The prophet simply nodded, his eyes serious. It is what it is. The place where you got your last cut. Go back there and you will find your answers. Charles had always been the kind of guy who believed in routine. Every 2 weeks, without fail, he would step into the cute Hairstyles barbershop with its vibrant, lively atmosphere and constant buzz of chatter. The shop wasn't just a place to get a haircut. It was a social hub. Men came in to talk about football, politics, and anything else under the sun. The barbers, 5 of them, each with their own distinct style, competed to give the best cut. But for Charles, there was one barber who stood out among the rest. Friday. Friday was the best. There was something about the way he handled the clippers, his smooth, rhythmic movements, and the way he cracked jokes that made Charles feel like he was getting a VIP treatment. Over the years, Charles had developed a kind of bond with Friday. Ah, Oga Charles, my main man, you are looking sharp today. Are you ready for your fresh cut? Friday would greet him with a wide grin every time. Of course, Friday, always ready, Charles would reply with a chuckle, settling into the chair. That day, however, was a little different. Charles wasn't in the best of the moods. Work had been stressful, and he had a bit of a headache. But Friday's charm was enough to lift his spirits. The familiar hum of clippers filled the air as Friday began his work. There was the usual banter with the other barbers, some complaining about their wives, others boasting about their football teams. As the clippers buzzed, Charles leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. Are you sure about this trim, Oga Charles? Friday asked, his voice carrying a slight chuckle. Yeah, man, just like always. Keep it fresh, Charles replied. Friday smiled, his hands moving expertly. Charles felt a sense of relaxation wash over him, and for a brief moment, the weight of the world didn't feel so heavy. Little did he know this haircut would mark the beginning of an incredibly bizarre and terrifying journey. Days later, the nightmare began. Charles woke up one morning with a strange pungent smell in the air. At first, he thought it was just his imagination. But no, the smell was real and it was coming from his head. He froze in shock as he ran his hand through his hair. Something was wrong. The faint smell of rotten eggs mixed with a foul, musty odor clung to his scalp. Charles stood there, trying to figure out what could possibly be happening. It wasn't just a bad hair day. This was something much worse. Mike, Charles called his friend over the phone who lived next door. Mike, ever the joker, walked in with a smirk. What's up, bro? You look like you've seen a ghost. Charles tilted his head, trying not to gag as he lifted his hand to his hair again. Mike, something is wrong with my head. Mike squinted, giving him a weird look. What do you mean something is wrong with your head? You've been working too hard, man. Maybe it's the stress. Charles couldn't help but feel the panic rising inside him. No, Mike, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like something is decaying. My scalp, it smells horrible. Mike, now taking a closer sniff, recoiled. Okay, that's weird. Have you been putting something strange on your hair? No, I've been going to cute hairstyles like I always do, and Friday always gives me the best cuts, Charles said, starting to get frustrated. Mike scratched his head, thinking, look man, maybe you should go see a doctor. This sounds like something medical. Let's just rule it out, alright? Charles agreed, and so began his journey into medical uncertainty. He visited several hospitals, got scans, and even had a specialist check his head. But each test came back clean. Nothing was wrong, no infection, no explanation. At one point, a doctor in pristine white coat with a clipboard in hand looked Charles dead in the eye. I don't smell anything unusual, Charles. Maybe you've been overworking yourself. Have you considered, not working so hard? Charles blinked. You mean it's just stress? The doctor chuckled. Well, stress does have a way of messing with your senses, but I'll say you're perfectly healthy. Charles could hardly believe what he was hearing. I didn't come here for stress therapy, doc. I came for answers about why my head smells like a dead rat. The doctor, unfazed, patted him on the shoulder. Maybe you should try a nice, relaxing bath. It might help clear your head. And whatever you do, don't go to the barbershop and blame them. A haircut can't make your head smell like that. Frustrated and desperate, Charles turned to Mike again. I've been to 4 different doctors, Mike. No one knows what's wrong. They're all telling me it's nothing. Mike, always the one to find a solution, sighed deeply. Man, I think we need divine intervention right now. You've got to go to a prayer house. Trust me on this one. Charles laughed nervously. A prayer house? Mike, are you seriously suggesting I go pray for a haircut? Well, what else do you have to lose? Mike asked, a serious glint in his eyes. Charles reluctantly agreed to visit the prayer house. As he sat in the packed, noisy prayer house, he couldn't help but feel out of place. There were chants, incense wafting through the air, and people shouting in tongues. But then, as he sat there, praying for an answer, a strange thing happened. One of the prophets walked up to him, placed a hand on his head, and spoke softly. Your head, the smell, it's a curse. The place where you got your last haircut is responsible. Charles blinked, bewildered. What? A curse? That's crazy. The prophet simply nodded, his eyes serious. It is what it is. The place where you got your last cut. Go back there and you will find your answers. Charles stood there, shocked and confused. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. A curse from a haircut, he muttered under his breath as he left the prayer house. Charles couldn't shake off the strange words of the prophet. A curse from a haircut. He walked out of the prayer house, shaking his head, trying to make sense of it all. He had always been a man of reason, so this talk of curses seemed ridiculous. But the smell from his head was real. The discomfort was unbearable. He stopped by Mike's apartment later that day. Mike, I don't know what to think. A curse from a haircut. Charles flopped down on the couch. Mike, ever the practical one, rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Look, bro, if it walks like a dog and quacks like a dog, maybe it's a dog. This thing is serious. Charles slumped, feeling overwhelmed. I've been to 4 different doctors. All of them say nothing is wrong. They gave me scans, tests, and poked around my head like I'm some science experiment. But all I get is, you are healthy. I don't know, man. Mike grinned, trying to lighten the mood. Maybe they just didn't know how to diagnose head-centered apocalypse syndrome. Charles couldn't help but chuckle, despite his frustration. I swear, if one more doctor asks me about my stress level, I'm going to lose it. Maybe we need to go higher up the chain. Have you ever thought about hitting up a government hospital? Mike asked, his eyes narrowing in thought. Charles groaned. Oh no, not that place. You know how crowded it gets. It's like fighting through a jungle just to get an appointment. Mike shrugged. Well, sometimes the best doctors are in those places. You know they have all the resources. Just go for the evaluation and get a second opinion. You've got nothing to lose. The government hospital was everything Charles had feared and more. The waiting area was packed with people, some looking too sick for comfort, while others seemed to be in some other world entirely. The air smelled of antiseptic, and there were a lot of loud, chaotic voices. Charles found a seat, trying to calm his nerves as Mike nudged him. See, what did I tell you? No waiting here, huh? Shut up, Mike. Charles muttered, still holding his head and sniffing cautiously. I'm starting to wonder if the smell is in my head. After a long wait and several rounds of impatient shuffling, Charles was finally called in. He followed the nurse to the consultation room, where a slightly disheveled doctor greeted him. Mr. Charles, what seems to be the problem? The doctor adjusted his glasses, barely glancing up from the stack of papers on his desk. I've got this weird smell coming from my head. I've been to a few places and no one can figure out what's causing it. The doctor leaned back in his chair. Smell, you say? Are you sure it's not stress? A lot of our patients complain about stress-related symptoms that manifest as strange smells. Charles stared at him. Stress, Doc. I've got a strong stomach, but this smell is making me question my life choices. The doctor smiled sympathetically. Well, let's start with a test. After another series of tests and more poking and prodding, Charles left the government hospital no closer to an answer. The visit had been more exhausting than enlightening. Mike was waiting outside with a snack in hand. Well, did they give you any answers? Mike asked, already knowing the answer. Charles dropped his shoulders in defeat. Nothing. Just told me I'm healthy and maybe stressed out. Mike raised an eyebrow. So, what now? Are you going to head to the next prayer house? Charles frowned. I don't know. I've had enough of these people talking about my health like it's some abstract concept. Maybe it's time I look somewhere else. That night, Charles lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Mike's words echoed in his mind. Maybe you should try a prayer house again. As crazy as it sounded, Charles couldn't help but think about it. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a medical issue. Maybe this really was something spiritual. The whole thing seemed ridiculous, but at this point, what did he have to lose? With that thought in mind, he decided to visit another prayer house, this time a bit farther from his usual spots. At the prayer house, the atmosphere was even more intense than before. Incense wafted in the air as people chanted prayers in unison, their voices rising in a powerful rhythm. Charles felt out of place, but something compelled him to stay. The prophet of the church located him in no time. "Charles," the prophet said, eyes narrowing as he looked at him. "The smell you carry, it is not of this world. It is a curse placed upon you because of where you had your last haircut." Charles's heart skipped a beat. "You are the second prophet saying this thing is a curse." The prophet nodded, his expression grave. "Yes, the place where you received your last haircut has brought this upon you. You must return to it." Charles felt the chill of dread wash over him. Could this actually be true? Could something as simple as a haircut really cause all of this? Before he could say anything, the prophet touched his forehead and murmured a prayer. "The spirits say you will find your answer soon. Return to where the darkness began." Charles could feel the weight of the prophet's words pressing down on him as he walked out of the prayer house. "The barbershop is cursed." He shook his head, trying to push away the ridiculous thoughts that were forming in his mind. But as he stepped out into the cool evening air, the smell from his head hit him again, stronger, sharper, like a putrid stench of something rotten. Mike, waiting by the entrance, saw Charles's face and immediately frowned. "Bro, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Charles didn't know how to explain it. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. I don't know, Mike," Charles said, rubbing his face in frustration. "I've been to doctors, prayer houses, you name it, and everyone keeps telling me the same thing, that my head is cursed because of where I got my hair cut." Mike blinked, clearly unsure if Charles was joking. "A curse? Come on, bro. That's a little extreme, don't you think?" "I wish it was," Charles muttered, feeling a strange twinge of panic rise in his chest. "But there's this one thing that I can't ignore." Mike raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "The smell, Mike. It's real. I can't shake it. It's like my head is rotten." Mike recalled a little. Okay. Maybe we should take this thing seriously. A curse or not, something is wrong with your head. It really does smell bad and you need help." Charles let out a long sigh. "I've been to the best hospitals, Mike. They all tell me there's nothing physically wrong. I have been to churches and they're saying it's where I got my last haircut. At this point, I don't know what to believe. But what else can I do?" Mike paused for a moment. Then a thought seemed to strike him. Okay, I have an idea. Why don't you go see a native doctor? I know, it sounds crazy, right? But there might be some truth to what those guys know." Charles frowned. "A native doctor? Seriously?" Mike nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, man. You've already been to the doctors. You've tried the prayer houses. Maybe this is the one thing you haven't done. Look, man, desperate times call for desperate measures." Charles wasn't sure. The whole idea seemed a bit far-fetched, but at this point, what did he have to lose? Later that day, Charles found himself outside a small, dimly lit house on the outskirts of town. The place looked like something straight out of an old movie. Wooden beams, faded paint, and a few dried herbs hanging from the door. Charles stood there for a moment, unsure if he was doing the right thing. But then, as if to push him forward, the smell from his head hit him again and he stepped inside. Inside, the air was thick with incense, and an old man sat behind a wooden desk, staring at him with piercing eyes. The man's name was Papa Ojodo, and he had a reputation for solving problems that doctors and priests couldn't touch. "Welcome, young man," Papa Ojodo said in a deep voice, his eyes narrowing as he looked at Charles. "I see you come with a troubled soul." Charles nodded, swallowing hard. "You could say that, Papa. I've been dealing with something strange, something that no one can explain." Papa Ojodo motioned for Charles to sit. "Tell me, what is this trouble that has brought you here?" Charles hesitated, then told Papa Ojodo the whole story, from the haircut at Cute Hairstyles to the strange decay in his head. When he finished, Papa Ojodo leaned back in his chair, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "The cause is real, and it came from the place where you got your last haircut," Papa Ojodo said gravely. Charles felt a chill run down his spine. This makes you the third person to say the same thing. But the one who cursed you is not the barber himself. It is the one who collects the hair after the cuts, the aboki, Papa Ojodo said. "The aboki?" Charles repeated, confused. Papa Ojodo nodded slowly. "Yes, the aboki is the one who gathers the hair from the barber shop. The hair you left behind was sold to someone powerful, someone who wanted to use it for rituals, and now that dark energy has attached itself to you." Charles's head spun. "Wait, what? You mean the guy who sweeps up hair, the one who collects it?" Papa Ojodo leaned forward. "Yes, the aboki gives the hair to wealthy individuals, people who pay him for it. They use the hair for dark rituals, and that's what has cursed you. Your hair has been used in something that was meant to bring harm." Charles's mind raced. "What can I do? How do I stop it?" Papa Ojodo's eyes softened. "You must confront the barber. Find the one who cut your hair, and he will show you the way to break the curse." The next day, Charles set out to find the owner of Cute Hairstyles. He had a new sense of urgency, but he also had questions. He arrived at the barber shop determined to find answers. The shop was still as bustling as ever, the chatter filling the air. Charles walked up to the owner, a man who had been running the shop for years with a confident air. "Excuse me," Charles said, trying to sound calm. "I need to talk to you about something." The owner, a stout man with a thick mustache, looked up. "Ah, Charles, always good to see you. Are you ready for a new haircut? You know you like looking fresh always." But Charles wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. It's not about that. I need to know what happened when I got my last haircut here, the one with Friday." The owner raised an eyebrow. "Friday? He's no longer with us. He left and started his own place in another state." Charles's heart sank. "What do you mean he just left?" The owner nodded. "Yes, but look, I don't know what you're talking about. We run a clean shop here, no funny business." "But Friday, he's the one who cut my hair," Charles insisted. "Where did he go? I need to talk to him." The owner sighed, wiping his hands on his apron. "Well, I can't speak for him, but you might want to check his new shop. He's doing well there. I heard he's grown quite popular. Maybe he's got answers for you." Charles's heart raced as he left the barber shop, the owner's words still echoing in his ears. Friday was gone. the man who had been the source of his last good haircut, and now possibly the key to ending his suffering, had disappeared without a trace. Mike, of course, had a few thoughts on the matter. Oh boy, this is crazy. First, they tell you it's a curse. Then you find out it's because of a guy who sweeps hair. And now, Friday is nowhere to be found. Mike said, pacing around Charles, practically shaking his head in disbelief. I think the universe is messing with you, bro. Charles didn't laugh. He was too deep into the mess to care about jokes. Mike, I need answers. This curse, this decay, it's real. And if I don't get to the bottom of it, I might lose my mind. I need to find Friday. Okay, I get it, Mike said, holding up his hands in mock surrender. But you know what? Let's just go where the leads take us. We'll find this Friday guy no matter what. And so, with that resolve, Charles and Mike set off for the new barbershop where Friday had set up. They followed the direction they were given. The journey filled with silence, each man lost in his thoughts. The place Friday had moved to wasn't too far away, a few towns away from theirs. Charles felt like he was about entering into the unknown, but he had no choice. When they arrived, the new shop was everything Charles didn't expect. It was a sleek, modern place. The floor was polished to a shine, and there were large windows with heavy curtains. The buzz of clippers was now accompanied by smooth jazz playing in the background. It was like walking into a barbershop designed for celebrities. Charles barely recognized the place as anything related to cute hairstyles. Well, at least Friday has moved up in the world, Mike said, eyeing the high-end decor. I swear, this place looks like it could use a red carpet. But Charles didn't smile. Let's find him, he said curtly. They walked up to the counter, and Charles asked the receptionist, a sharp-dressed young woman, if Friday was around. Sorry, sir, she said, not even looking up from her phone. He's at the back, dealing with some business. Charles looked at Mike, both of them exchanging uncertain glances. Business? Charles echoed. The receptionist nodded, a bit dismissive. Yeah, he's always busy now, but if you wait, I can let him know you are here. Charles nodded and sat down in one of the plush chairs, staring at the mirror in front of him, his thoughts swirling. After what felt like an eternity, Friday finally appeared. He walked in with an air of confidence that seemed to radiate from him. His once modest attire had been replaced by a well-tailored suit, and he looked every bit the successful businessman. But as soon as his eyes landed on Charles, his face faltered, just for a second. Oga Charles, Friday said, a forced smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It's been a while. Charles stood up, his heart pounding. I need to talk to you, Friday. It's about my head, the decay, the smell. Friday's smile disappeared. He glanced over at the receptionist, then nodded for her to leave. As she walked out of the room, Friday motioned for Charles and Mike to sit. I know what you're going to say, Friday began, his voice steady, but tinged with something that Charles couldn't quite place. You think I did something to your hair, right? Charles' stomach twisted. Not just me. Everyone in that shop has been saying the same thing, that it was you who caused it. Friday sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. It wasn't me, Charles. I cut your hair, yes, but my hands are clean. I'm doing well here because I'm honest with my clients. I have nothing to do with what is happening to you. Charles wasn't buying it. But the aboki, the one who collects the hair, he's been selling it to someone powerful. It's that energy that cost me, isn't it? Friday's face hardened. That's where you are wrong. I never knew about the aboki's side hustle until it was too late. I found out later that he had been selling the hair behind my back. He seemed nice and always offered to help sweep the floor after the day's work for a few hundred naira. Charles leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. Who did he sell it to, Friday? Who is responsible? Friday paused for a long moment, his gaze flickering to the door as if considering whether to speak. Then he finally spoke, his voice low. From what I later learned, the aboki doesn't give the hair to just anyone. It's a specific kind of client, wealthy, powerful people. I've heard rumors that they use it for dark rituals, things I don't even want to think about. Charles felt the cold creep up his spine. So what do I do now, Friday? How do I stop it? Friday looked away for a moment, then sighed. There is a man who had the same issue you are dealing with. His head, his body, he was decaying just like yours. But he found a way to break the curse. And he was kind enough to give me the name and address of the person that helped him in case other people come to me with the same accusation. You are the 5th person that has come to me accusing me of the same thing. But I always direct them to the man that helped the first man with his healing. I'll give you his number. He can help you. Charles felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in days. Where do I find him? His name is Tundi. He lives in a small village just outside of town. Trust me, he will know what to do. Charles didn't waste another second. He grabbed the piece of paper with Tunde's number and address written on it and stood up, thanking Friday quickly before leaving the barbershop. As they walked out of the shop, Mike couldn't help but ask, "Do you believe him?" Charles shrugged. "I don't know, Mike, but it's the only lead I've got. I've got no choice but to go after it." Mike nodded in agreement. "Yeah, man, I think you are getting close, but let's hope Tundi has got some good news and that he doesn't want your hair as a payment. At this point, I would give him my hair if it meant this nightmare would end." The drive to Tunde's village was long, filled with quiet anticipation. Charles knew that whatever happened next would be the turning point. He could either find the cure or spiral further into madness. But for now, he had no other option. The small village that Charles and Mike arrived looked like something straight out of a rustic fairy tale. Dusty roads lined with scattered huts, children playing with old tires, and a few elderly men sitting under trees chatting in low tones. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Mike asked, squinting around as they drove through the village. "I don't see any other option," Charles replied, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "This is the man who might be able to help. Tundi is my last chance." They finally reached a small compound surrounded by a tall fence with a weathered sign that read Tundi's Remedies. The house was modest, with a small garden growing around it. The air was thick with the smell of herbs and spices, and Charles immediately felt a strange sense of calm settle over him, despite the weight of his predicament. Mike, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "It looks like he's got a little herbal shop going on here. Are you sure this guy is the real deal? Charles didn't have the time to entertain Mike's doubts. He just wanted the damn curse to be lifted. And if Tundi was the one who could do it, then nothing else mattered. They walked up to the door, and before Charles could knock, it swung open. Standing in the doorway was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a face weathered by time and wisdom. His eyes were sharp, and there was a calm presence about him that immediately made Charles feel like he was in the right place. "You must be Charles," Tundi said, his voice low but powerful. "I've been expecting you." Charles blinked in surprise. "You've been expecting me?" Tundi smiled slightly. "Yes, the signs have been clear. You have been marked. But don't worry, we can fix it." Charles looked at him, trying to gauge if this was another dead end or the real solution. "How do you know all this?" Tundi motioned for them to come inside. "Come in, we'll talk inside." Inside Tunde's home, the air smelled of herbs and incense. A small fire burned in the corner of the room, crackling softly. The walls were lined with shelves filled with bottles, jars, and bundles of dried plants. A map of traditional remedies hung on the wall, showing plants and herbs that Charles had never seen before. Tundi gestured for them to sit. "You have been cursed, Charles. The Aboki sold your hair to someone who performs dark rituals with it. But it's not just the hair itself. It's the energy that was transferred when you left that shop. That is what is causing the decay." Charles swallowed hard. "I still don't understand. Why me? Why my hair?" Tunde's expression softened. "Your hair is more than just dead cells. It's a part of you. It carries your energy, your essence. When your hair is taken without your knowledge, it becomes a link, a bridge for darker forces to enter your life. The ritual they performed, it's been feeding on your energy." Charles's heart pounded in his chest. "So, what do I do now? How do I fix this?" Tundi leaned forward, his eyes piercing. "The solution is simple, but not easy. You must sever the link that connects you to the cause. To do that, we need to perform a cleansing ritual, one that will purify you and destroy the connection between you and the dark forces." Charles nodded, desperate for any way to stop the decay. "How do we do it?" Tundi stood up and walked over to the table covered in different herbs and tools. "You will need to lie still. We will use a combination of herbs to cleanse your body and spirit. The herbs will remove the negative energy, and the ritual will close the link between you and the curse." Charles felt a little more hopeful, but a part of him still wondered if this was going to work. What if it didn't? Tundi turned back to him, holding a small bundle of dried herbs. "This is your last chance, Charles. After this, the curse will either be broken or it will consume you." Then Tundi began. The cleansing ritual was intense. Tundi carefully placed the herbs around Charles, muttering ancient incantations as he moved. The air grew thick with the smell of burning sage and other strange herbs. Charles could feel a tingling sensation starting at the top of his head, spreading to his neck, shoulders, and chest. For a moment, everything went dark. Charles could hear Tunde's voice, but it felt distant, like it was coming from far away. He tried to open his eyes, but they felt too heavy. And then it happened. Charles's body jerked, as if something was being pulled from inside of him. He gasped for air, feeling a surge of energy, like a flood of light was coursing through his veins. The smell that had plagued him for months, the awful decaying stench, began to fade. Slowly, he opened his eyes, blinking in disbelief. Tundi was standing over him, his face serene. "It's done," he said softly. "You are free from the curse." Charles sat up slowly, the dizziness still swelling around him. But he noticed something. He could no longer smell the decay. It was gone. His scalp felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Mike, who had been watching from the corner of the room, looked at Charles in disbelief. Is it really gone?" Charles touched his head, then sniffed. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was no foul odor. It was as if nothing had ever happened. "I can't believe it," Charles muttered. "It's really over." Tundi smiled, his expression calm. "The ritual worked. The energy has been cleansed. You are free." Charles stood up, his legs a little shaky, but his head felt normal again. The decay was gone, and so was the smell. He turned to Tundi. "Thank you, sir. You saved me." Tundi nodded. "Remember this, Charles. The darkness is always waiting. Be careful where you go, and always trust the energy around you. Never let it be taken without your knowledge." Charles gave a grateful nod, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in days. The nightmare was finally over. On the drive back to the city, Mike couldn't stop grinning. "Bro, I gotta admit, I thought you were crazy. But look at you, no stench, no decay, just a fresh scalp." Charles chuckled. "Yeah, man, I think I've learned my lesson. Never trust a barbershop that is too flashy." Mike laughed. "And never let an aboki near your hair." Charles grinned. "You can say that again, bro." Later that evening, Charles sat at home, reflecting on everything that had happened. His head was clear now. The nightmare was over. He thought about Friday, the barber who had unintentionally set this whole thing into motion. Charles realized that in the end, Friday wasn't to blame. It was the aboki, the one who collected the hair for his own sinister purposes, that was truly responsible. But even so, Charles couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude toward Friday. Without him, he wouldn't have found the answers he needed. And then he couldn't forget the role his friend Mike played as well. He pulled out his phone and sent him a quick message. "Thanks for sticking by me, bro. I'm good now. Let's never forget the lesson in all this." Mike's reply came almost immediately. "No problem, man. And yeah, I'm definitely never letting anyone near my hair again unless I'm watching them with a magnifying glass." Charles laughed to himself. It felt good to finally be able to laugh again. Lessons to take away from the story. Although some parts of the story were made up to add flesh to the story, nevertheless, this is a true life story. It calls for carefulness when going to get a haircut. If in doubt, please ask the barber if he can pack your cut hair and give it to you to dispose of by yourself before getting a haircut. If you can afford a home service, always request for one and have them pack the hair for you to dispose of. If you can, learn how to barb yourself and your children. Not only will it save you money, it may just save your lives. Thank you so much for watching today's story. Please let me know what you think about the story in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And please click the notification bell beside the subscribe button to be notified each time I make a new post. Until I come your way again soon, stay happy.